A very good morning to all of you. Hope all are doing fine. Yes, today we will read very famous poem Daffodils by William Wordsworth. You are already provided with many materials and other video links. Then also this class is very important to you. I'll try my best to explain each line to you all and with its proper explanation and proper summary, proper meaning. And after that, if you find any difficulty in understanding the theme of the poem or anything else would bother you, please do let me know. I'll try to solve all the queries of yours. So this is already taught to you in the previous class as well. Then also we will start afresh, and we all know about William Wordsworth, right? No study in English literature would be completed without uh, Wordsworth. I don't think it's possible to complete any of the studies, any of the research without William Wordsworth, and he is one of the greatest nature poets and romantic poets that we are having in our English literature, right? And you know, he was someone who really connected with the nature, and he found that nature is not at all an inanimate object. Rather, we all have the nature within us, and with our senses we can really relate uh, to this nature, and this nature is very inspirational inspirational in its terms, conditions, and the ecstatic pleasure that any human being is in need of in order to write down his or her experiences, and in order to go forward about life and all. People need to learn many things from nature, and nature never deceives us. So this poem actually talks about how nature is influential and how the influences of it can be upon the human mind, and how far it will be able to capture it in its gulfs, okay, with all its sensible and you know vibrant um, characteristics. So once what happened, Wordsworth was walking with his sister Dorothy, we all know, and they all both of them actually were going across a site, and that was a site of a belt of golden daffodils that was stretched along the line of the bay. And the sight of this vast expanse of the yellow daffodils was so captivating and rapturous that the poet couldn't but be gay being there, and he was actually devouring all the all the beauty, all the enormous aspect of nature with his senses and with his vision. And now he goes on to tell the reader that long after he had the experience and there are the memory that used to supply him with the most desired pleasure and influence and inspiration that it could. And actually this poem was a very famous eulogy to the restorative powers of nature, right? And Wordsworth actually lived, we all know, lived in a picturesque lake district in England. The poem is based on the experience, as I said, that he had with his sister, and who was his sister? That was his she was his constant companion, Dorothy. On April 15, 1802, fortunately Dorothy kept a journal. She wrote on the day, and she and her brother unexpectedly came across a crowd of daffodils. Okay, so it was inspired by an April 15, 1802 events. in which Wordsworth and his sister came across a long belt of daffodils. It's written in the year 1804, and it was first published in the year 1807, and the poems 2 volumes, and a revised version was later on published in the year 1815, which is more commonly known, and it consists of 4-line stanza in iambic tetrameter and an ABABCC rhyme scheme. So now without wasting time, let us get into the line by line explanation of the stanza. So hopefully the book is open in front of you all. If not, just to pause the video and have the book with you all. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. So Wordsworth lived in a part of England known as the Lake District, which is filled with lots of hills, valleys and lakes. We can assume that he was working in a fairly remote and wild part of the countryside. So 2 pictures attract the attention of the readers in the first stanza. The first is that the lonely clouds are floating over hills and valleys. The poet actually equates himself to the cloud to prove that he was also roaming in the area alone. The second picture forms the basis of the poem. It is one of the daffodils. The poet saw that the daffodils were dancing in mild breeze. The full-grown golden flowers are no less than a celestial presence. And the daffodils were personified and imagined to be doing human activities like swaying their heads and dancing in the breeze. There also is a hint of daffodils are otherworldly. As I said, it has some spiritual connection, and it was able to hold the poet's vision for so long with its unearthly experience. Okay, then continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So the poet here compares the multitude of golden daffodils to the stars in the Milky Way. The stars in the Milky Way are seen in such a condensed form that we cannot even distinguish one star from the other. And here the same thing happened to the daffodils. They all are actually standing in a line and very closer to each other that it was impossible for the poet to differentiate them. And the poet uses the number which signifies the concentration of the daffodils along the side of the particular lake the poet was walking beside. The daffodils has been imagined to be dancing and tossing their heads, and they are very joyous, and their joy is manifested in their active dance. So they are, it's impossible for the poet to differentiate them. They all are standing very closer to each other, and the way the stars are inseparable from one another, and it's impossible for the poet, for all of us to actually count how many are there. So the same idea is applied here in case of the daffodils, and they all were very happy, tossing their heads. By using this word tossing, it is given the strata of a human, and this is called personification. And they all were happy, they were tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what well to show to me had brought. So here, the poet here explains the beneficial influence of nature on the mind of man. He takes his own case and says that whenever he is in a sad mood and goes on seclusion actually, so he gets all the desired element from the daffodils, and they all were happy in glee. They were dancing, and the poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. The poet couldn't help himself being happy in their company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. Means the poet kept on thinking, kept on contemplating what wealth the daffodils is bringing to them. Okay, bringing to him. And this is not at all a very common and materialistic wealth the poet is talking about. Rather, he's talking about something very much celestial, and it has some of the unearthly element in it. It gives the poet to roam in an elevated level. Okay, and the daffodils are helping the poet in order to roam there without any worry, and their jocund company keeps the poet ever happening, and always inspiring the poet to jot down his experience. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or pensive mood, they flash upon the inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure feels and dances with the daffodils. So the poet is saying here, whenever the poet is in vacant or pensive mood, he is offered the bliss of solitude by the thought of daffodils. This thought, he is already preoccupied by the thought. The vista is completely impregnated with the celestial inspiration that is supplied by the daffodils. So whenever he is very unhappy and in a very vacant or pensive mood, this daffodils are successful to provide him with the bliss of solitude. And by thought of the daffodils, he all of a sudden he remains happy. So the nature exerts her beneficial influence on the poet twice. First, when he actually views the daffodils, and then when he sees the daffodils in his imagination. So in both the cases, the poet is equally influenced by the nature and its inspirational objects. And bliss means, we all know, bliss means blessing, and solitude means loneliness, right? So the memory of the flowers and the lake flashes into his head. He feels very happy. It almost like the same experience he had while wandering through the nature at the beginning of the poem, when the real daffodils actually pushed the loneliness of his head. The memory of the daffodils is as good as the real thing. His heart is set to dancing just like the flowers. He dances along with them. They are his cheerful companions once again. Okay, so one more expression, that is inward eye. Inward eye expresses what Wordsworth felt to be a deeper, truer spiritual vision. A person cannot share his or her own spiritual vision completely with others, and so it is a form of solitude. But the truth and beauty make it blissful, right? And the rest of the words are known to you all, hopefully. Do read the poem once again with all its explanations. I will be providing with all the material and worksheet, and whatever the thing possible will be helpful in order to decode the poem. But the task is left with you all, that is, you have to read the poem line by line, and let me know what is your experience and how far did you relate with the poet, and what do you feel? What is your perception after reading this poem? Let me know, and have a happy day. Do attend all the classes. Hopefully we are meeting soon. Thank you for listening.